My name is Eric. I'm 38, and for the last 9 years, I've been married to a woman named Rachel. We live in Colorado with our 8-year-old son, Mason. I'm a civil engineer. Rachel's in marketing. On paper, we were the perfect family. We had the white picket fence, the school drop-offs, the family dinners, the carefully filtered vacation photos posted online. But what you don't see on social media is the long nights spent lying awake, wondering why the person lying beside you feels so far away. You don't see the hesitation in her eyes when you say, "I love you." You don't hear the silent screams that echo between shared walls. This all started 2 months before our annual summer vacation. Rachel came into the kitchen one evening while I was washing dishes. Her voice was light, too light. "Hey, I was thinking maybe this year we rent that beach house in California. The one near San Clemente." I looked up surprised. "That's out of budget, isn't it?" "I got a bonus this quarter," she said. "We deserve something nice. A proper family getaway." I should have questioned it then. Should have asked what changed, why the sudden excitement. But I didn't. I wanted to believe she was trying. I wanted to believe we were still worth the effort. So I smiled and nodded. "Sound perfect." And it did. It sounded like a reset button. For us. For Mason. For a marriage that had been running on autopilot. What I didn't know then was that Rachel had been orchestrating more than just a vacation. She was planning a reunion. The days leading up. The weeks flew by in a blur of planning. Rachel was unusually cheerful. She even bought Mason a new suitcase with superhero stickers. I found her humming while packing, folding towels like she used to back when things were good. I started believing we had turned a corner. But one night, I found something that didn't sit right. I was looking for my charger in her home office drawer when I came across an envelope, unlabeled, tucked behind a folder. I opened it. Inside were 2 printed boarding passes. 2. One was obviously hers. The other? A name I hadn't heard in years. Kyle Roberts. Rachel's ex-boyfriend from college. The guy she told me was toxic, someone she had cut off long ago. My hand started to shake. I put the envelope back exactly as I found it, walked out quietly, and didn't mention it. I wish I had. Instead, I waited. I wanted to see how far she'd go. Arriving at the beach house. The house was beautiful. A rental on a bluff with a view of the Pacific. Mason was thrilled. Rachel smiled at me like we were newlyweds again. We unpacked, cooked, laughed. But the next morning, things began to unravel. Rachel stepped outside to take a call, early, before breakfast. I watched from the window. Her back was to me, but her voice carried. "I told you not yet. Wait until I give you the go-ahead." Then laughter. Soft. Familiar. She came back inside, pretending nothing had happened. Later that afternoon, there was a knock at the door. Rachel casually said, "Oh, that must be the delivery guy," and opened it. But it wasn't UPS. It was Kyle, and he wasn't alone. Beside him stood Brian, Rachel's ex-husband, the one she divorced 2 years before we met. I stood frozen. She smiled and turned to me. "Eric, I hope you don't mind. They're just joining us for the weekend." A little blast from the past. I felt the room tilt. "What the hell is going on, Rachel?" Her expression didn't change. "It's just a few days. They needed a break too. Besides, it's not a big deal." Kyle walked in like he owned the place, Brian trailing behind with a duffel bag and a smirk. I looked at Mason, sitting on the floor with a toy truck, completely unaware. I didn't say anything. Not yet. I needed to understand just how deep this betrayal went. The thin veil of normalcy. For the next 48 hours, I watched, studied, listened. Rachel was different around them, especially Kyle. They shared jokes I didn't understand. Inside stories. Looks that lasted a second too long. Brian kept giving me smug glances, as if he knew something I didn't. At dinner, Kyle poured her wine without asking. She let him. I couldn't eat. I sat there pretending for Mason's sake. But inside, I was unraveling. That night, I confronted her in our room. "You planned this." She didn't deny it. "I thought we could all be adults," she said. "Kyle and I are just friends. Brian's here for Mason. He was like a father to him before you." "Histoire de hair." "No, you're lying to me." Again, her expression shifted. Cold. Defensive. "Maybe if you weren't so paranoid all the time, we wouldn't be here." I slept on the couch that night. A message from the past. The next morning, while she was out with Kyle on a grocery run, Brian stayed behind with Mason and me. He leaned against the deck railing, watching the waves. You know, he said, Rachel never really stopped talking to Kyle, even when we were married. Some people just can't let go. I didn't respond. You're not the first man to think he could fix her. Still, I said nothing. But I knew what I had to do. Cliffhanger ending to part 1. The email. That night, after Rachel fell asleep, I logged into our shared laptop. And that's when I found it. An email thread. Hundreds of messages. Flirty. Intimate. Planning details. Code words. Hotel receipts. Plans made during our anniversary weekend last year. She hadn't just brought them here. She'd been seeing both of them. For years. I sat in the dark, staring at the screen, heart hammering in my chest. Everything I believed in, our marriage, our home, our family, was a lie. And then I saw the latest message, dated just 3 days ago. It was from Kyle. If he finds out, we can say it was your idea to make peace. We'll spin it like a surprise reunion. He'll never walk out. He's too soft. And when it's done, we'll finally be rid of him. I closed the laptop, slowly, carefully. I didn't say a word, but something in me changed that night. I would not be used. Not again. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there on the couch, staring at the ceiling, listening to the waves crashing just outside the window, trying to make sense of it all. I had married Rachel thinking she was my forever. I raised Mason with her, thinking we were building something sacred. But now I was just the punchline in a plan I hadn't even known existed. That email wasn't just about lies. It was a strategy. I was being managed, manipulated by the very person I trusted most. And the worst part? They thought I was too soft to do anything about it. Morning pretenses. The next morning, Rachel greeted me with a fake smile and a peck on the cheek like nothing had happened. How'd you sleep? She asked, pouring coffee. Histoire de hair. You tell me. She blinked, caught off guard for a second. But she recovered quickly. Don't start, Eric. This was supposed to be a relaxing trip. Kyle and Brian were already outside with Mason, setting up a kite on the beach like it was their family. Like I didn't exist. Something inside me snapped. I walked out and stood between them and my son. Mason looked up at me, excited. Dad, Kyle's showing me how to fly it. Kyle smirked. We're just having some fun. I stared at him. Step away. The tension thickened immediately. Brian moved closer, but I didn't budge. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't make a scene. I just took Mason's hand and walked him back to the house. Rachel watched from the porch, her expression unreadable. A visit to town. I told Rachel I needed to grab something from the local store and took Mason with me. I needed distance, time, air, but more than anything, I needed a plan. We stopped at a coffee shop. Mason was drawing spaceships on a napkin while I sat in the corner with my phone, scrolling back through those emails, looking for anything, any detail I could use. And I found it. There was a mention of a second phone, a backup line Rachel used for Kyle. Hidden, probably, or registered under another name. I searched the name. Nothing. But I did get a hit on a payment history. A burner phone purchased 2 years ago. Monthly prepaid. Guess whose credit card it was tied to? Mine. She had used my own money to fund her double life. Back at the beach house. When we returned, Rachel was waiting for us on the porch, arms crossed. We need to talk, she said. Mason went inside. I followed her around the side of the house, out of sight. She didn't waste time. What's your problem, Eric? You've been acting weird since we got here. I know everything. Her face twitched barely. What are you talking about? The emails. The hotel receipts. The phone. She tried to laugh it off, but it didn't sound right. Don't be dramatic. I know you've been seeing Kyle behind my back. I know Brian's part of it too. That's when she snapped. What do you want me to say? That I missed them? That being with you felt like I was disappearing? That I try to love you, but it never felt like it used to. I stood there, stunned. You should have left me then, I said quietly. I tried. So many times. But Mason and the house and the guilt. You were always so nice. So patient. And I hated you for it. Her honesty hit harder than a lie. You brought them here to hurt me? No. I brought them here to force the truth. Because I couldn't say it myself. And there it was. The cowardice dressed up as courage. Brian's interference. That night, Brian cornered me in the kitchen. She's not the only one who's tired of pretending, he said. I looked at him coldly. You still think you're part of this family? Please. You think Mason doesn't notice how distant you are? You work late. You barely engage. Rachel carried this whole thing. You don't know anything about my life. Oh, I know enough, he said. I know Rachel stayed with you because she pitied you. And now that she's found herself again, you're scared. That was it. I stepped forward. Not violently. Just close enough for him to finally understand. Get out of this house. Now. Or what? I smiled. Or I remind you who actually pays the lease. Secrets from Mason. Later that evening, while Rachel and the others were outside drinking wine, Mason came to me in the living room. Dad. Boo. Why did Kyle tell me to call him Uncle Kyle? He said he and Mom used to be in love. I felt my stomach twist. And Brian said he might move in with us someday if you go away. I looked at him carefully. Did Mom say that? No, but she didn't stop them when they did. I hugged him tight. Don't worry. I'm not going anywhere. But inside, I knew I was lying. Because maybe I had to. The escape plan. The next day, I drove into town again. I met with a real estate agent. Started making inquiries about temporary housing. I called my sister in Oregon. Asked about staying for a few weeks. Rachel thought she had control. She didn't. I wasn't going to cause a scene. I wasn't going to shout or drag Mason into a war. But I wasn't going to stay either. I would leave with dignity and let her deal with the ruins she built. Cliffhanger ending to part 2. The recorded call. That night, while she was asleep again, I went through her phone. The one she thought I didn't know about. I found the voice recordings. She'd been recording conversations with me, stitching together moments, twisting my words, making it sound like I was emotionally abusive. It was all there, clear as day. And then I realized she wasn't just cheating. She was planning to take everything. The house, custody, my reputation. I put the phone down. I stared at her sleeping next to me. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel love. I felt the ice-cold calm of someone ready to walk away. Not in weakness, in power. The next morning, the house was strangely quiet. Kyle had gone surfing. Brian had taken Mason to grab ice cream. Rachel was on the balcony, sipping her coffee like she hadn't just recorded fake abuse allegations against me. I stood in the kitchen, toasting bread, feeling like I was watching a movie, except I was the one tied to the tracks, and everyone else was holding a camera. But I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to win, quietly. The lawyer. I made a call while sitting on a bench behind a nearby gas station, far enough that no one could overhear. It was a Saturday, but my firm had a legal retainer. I got a name, a number, a time. 30 minutes later, I was on a video call with a family attorney named Denise Collingsworth. Calm, sharp, not the type you can manipulate. I have emails, audio recordings, a hidden relationship that involves 2 men my wife once claimed to have cut ties with. One of them is coaching my son to think I'm not his real dad. She didn't blink. Do you want custody? I want the truth to be on record. I want safety for my son. And I want out. Then let's get started. The quiet record. That evening, I told Rachel I needed to go for a walk. Clear my head. She didn't ask where. She didn't offer to come. I took that as a final confirmation. I walked to the little bluff overlooking the beach, pulled out the second phone I had borrowed from the agent in town, and pressed record. And I started talking. Everything. From the moment I found the boarding passes to the last message I read on her phone. I named names, time frames, intent. I told the story she didn't want heard, told it all in one take. And then I sent it to Denise. Just in case I disappear, I texted with a bitter smile. The setup. That night, I sat at the dinner table while Rachel laughed at a joke Kyle told about his time in Brazil. Brian was drinking beer, his feet on the coffee table, pretending to be the cool dad. Mason sat beside me, quieter than usual. You okay, buddy? I asked. He looked up. Can we go home now? I swallowed hard. Soon. That was the last straw. I got up slowly, and I spoke. Rachel, can I talk to you in private? Everyone froze. Now, the confrontation. We walked into the guest room. I shut the door. I know everything. The phone, the recordings, the emails, the plans to spin a narrative against me. Her face stayed neutral. And now Mason's asking why your ex-boyfriend is telling him to call him uncle. And why your ex-husband is telling him I'll be replaced. She folded her arms. So what? What do you think is going to happen? You'll run off and tell some lawyer that I talked to my exes. No, I said. I'm not running. I showed her the open laptop, the email, the timestamp. That recording is already with my attorney. If you try to twist the story, it won't work. Her mask finally cracked. You bastard. No, Rachel. That's you. You used me. Gaslit me. Let two of your old lovers play house in front of our son. You made me feel like I was losing my mind. She looked away. Then, quietly, she said, "It was never supposed to go this far." Brian's confession. The next morning, Brian was in the driveway, smoking. I walked up to him. "You ever wonder why she divorced you?" I asked. He chuckled. "Of course. But now I think I get it. She's got this habit of dragging old flames around like safety nets." He looked at me, then said something I didn't expect. "She asked me to testify against you. Said you were becoming controlling. That you threatened her. And you agreed?" He shrugged. "I owed her. She helped me after the divorce. Paid off some debt. I thought maybe she'd come back." I nodded. "She won't." "I know," he said almost sadly. "She never really comes back." "Not really." The goodbye to Mason. I sat with Mason that evening, while Rachel was out shopping with Kyle again. "You like this trip?" I asked. He shook his head. "Not really." "Why?" "Because I just want to be with you. Just us." I felt something tighten in my chest. "I promise we're going to fix this." He leaned his head on my arm. "You're not going to leave, are you?" "No," he whispered. "I'm going to walk away. But not from you. From this mess." The final straw. That night, I walked past the guest room. Rachel's voice carried through the door. "He's breaking. I'll file after we get back. Kyle said he'll help with the transition. Brian can vouch. It'll be fine." I paused. Waited. Kyle's voice answered, low but clear. "As long as we don't lose the house." "You said it was already in your name." She laughed softly. "Almost. You just need to sign one more form." I walked away, back to the living room, opened my briefcase, pulled out the unsigned refinance agreement she'd asked me to look at a week earlier, put a red marker through it, then shredded it. Cliffhanger ending to part 3, the departure. The next morning, before the sun rose, I loaded the car. Just one bag. Mine. I left a note for Mason, tucked into his favorite book. "I love you more than anything. I'll see you soon. You'll understand all of this when you're older." Then I left another note on the kitchen counter. No emotion, no drama, just the facts. Rachel woke up at 7 a.m. to find me gone. No screaming, no fight, just a void she couldn't fill with Kyle's charm or Brian's nostalgia. She had brought the past on this vacation, but she didn't expect me to take the future with me when I left. It had been 4 days since I left the beach house. 4 days of silence. 4 days of waking up in a motel off the I-5, staring at the popcorn ceiling, wondering how it had come to this. But I didn't regret leaving. Not for 1 second. I had packed one suitcase, my laptop, and the folder I kept copies of Rachel's emails and recordings in, physical proof, just in case. My lawyer had them all too. There would be no more surprises. What haunted me most wasn't the betrayal. It was Mason. He didn't deserve any of this. And while Rachel was playing house with 2 men from her past, I was trying to plan our future from a roadside motel room. The first move. Denise, my lawyer, called that morning. "I reviewed the materials you sent me. You were right not to confront her further. We'll file for a legal separation immediately and petition for joint custody. Based on what you gave me, we have a strong case. Will I get Mason? We can't promise full custody, but we'll ask for primary. The emails, the recordings, especially the part where she and Kyle plan to manipulate the story, will play in your favor. And if she tries to spin it, she can't. We'll make sure of that." For the first time in weeks, I breathed. Rachel's panic. The first text came in at 10:13 a.m. "Rachel, where are you? What the hell is this?" Then another. "You just left? Without telling Mason? Are you insane?" I didn't reply. At noon, she called. I let it ring. Then again. Then a voicemail. "Eric, look, I know things have been messy, but this isn't the way. You're acting like I'm the enemy. I'm not. I'm still Mason's mother. We can fix this if you just come back and talk to me." Talk. After bringing 2 exes into our vacation like it was a reunion special? No, that bridge was burned. Kyle's message. Then came the unexpected, a message from Kyle. Short, sharp. "Be smart, Eric. You walk away now, You'll regret it. Rachel's not the only one with a story to tell. It took everything in me not to reply. But I didn't, because I knew what that meant. They were building a narrative. They weren't shocked I left. They were angry I did it before they could frame me for it. Mason's call. Later that night, my phone rang again. But this time, it was Mason's number. I answered in one breath. Hey, buddy. Dad. His voice was small. Why did you leave? I had to, bud. But I'm still here. I always will be. Mom said you don't want to be around us anymore. I closed my eyes, controlling my voice. That's not true. I'm just fixing some grown-up things. You didn't do anything wrong. He was quiet. Then, when can I see you? Very soon. I promise. The family court filing. By the end of the week, the papers were filed. Legal separation. Temporary custody hearing. Protective affidavit. My statement was 15 pages long. Every word was reviewed by Denise, polished like a weapon. Rachel was served 2 days later. That night, she called again. This time, she was furious. You really did this? You filed against me? After everything, I said calmly. You're destroying our family. No, Rachel. You did it the moment you made our vacation a stage for your exes. Silence. Then she hung up. Her counterattack. 2 days later, I received notice of her response filing. She was claiming emotional abandonment, manipulation, even subtle forms of control, things I never imagined she'd lie about. But Denise was ready. She's playing the sympathy card, she said. But we've already submitted digital proof refuting that. Once the judge sees what Kyle said about staging your reaction, it'll discredit her version. Still, it shook me. Not because I feared losing, because I realized just how far she'd go to keep the illusion alive. A visit from Brian. I got a knock at the motel door that night. Brian. I opened the door slowly. How'd you find me? I asked around, he said. Listen, I didn't know it would go this far. Rachel's spiraling. Are you here to help her? No, he said quickly. I'm here to help Mason. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a flash drive. What's that? Security footage. From the beach house. The night you left. She thought she deleted it, but I made a copy. She and Kyle were celebrating, laughing about how you finally cracked. Why are you giving me this? Because someone has to put Mason first. The court hearing approaches. Denise reviewed the footage. This seals it, she said. It shows motive, intent, and their lack of remorse. It's the final nail. Rachel hadn't just cheated. She had weaponized her partners, built a playbook to ruin me. And when it failed, she tried to rewrite the story. But she forgot something. The truth has weight. Cliffhanger ending to part 4. The day in court. On the morning of the hearing, I walked into that courtroom not as a victim, but as a man who had been dragged through fire and came out stronger. Rachel was already seated. She looked exhausted, her makeup heavy under her eyes. Kyle was there. So was Brian, sitting alone. She didn't meet my gaze. When the judge walked in, my hands were steady. My mind was clear. This wasn't about revenge. It was about redemption. For Mason. For me. And as the bailiff called our case, I knew the story wasn't over yet, but I would have the final say. The courtroom was cold. Not physically, but emotionally. Sterile. Formal. Stripped of the humanity that usually softened everyday conversations. This was no longer a fight between husband and wife. This was a war for credibility. For custody. For truth. I sat with Denise, calm on the outside, but inside, I could hear every beat of my heart echoing in my ears. Rachel avoided my eyes, sitting with her attorney, flipping through a packet of papers. Kyle sat behind her, leaning forward like he belonged there. Like he wasn't just a footnote in someone else's family story. And Brian? He sat in the back row alone. No expression. No allegiance. Just watching. Rachel's statement. She went first. Her voice cracked a little in the beginning, just enough to seem vulnerable. She talked about emotional neglect, confusion, a lack of support, and how she only wanted peace for our son. She painted herself as a woman who was trapped. I never meant to hurt Eric, she said, eyes glossy. I just needed closure, space to find myself. She talked about Kyle as a friend, Brian as a co-parent figure. She carefully danced around the details. Then she looked at the judge. I made mistakes, but I never tried to replace Eric. He's Mason's father. I just thought, we could all coexist peacefully. A perfectly rehearsed speech, but it didn't land the way she hoped. My turn. Denise stood and called me to the stand. I took a breath, walked up, and sat down, heart heavy, but voice steady. I didn't throw mud. I didn't rage. I told the truth. How I found the emails, the burner phone, the stage vacation, how Kyle and Brian were invited without my consent, and how Mason was led to believe he was being traded for a cooler dad. I described the voice recordings, the manipulation, the way she planned to set me up to look unhinged. Then Denise submitted the flash drive. The court watched the footage. Rachel and Kyle laughing, drinking wine, toasting to my breakdown like it was some kind of game. Her saying, "If he walks out, it's his guilt, not ours." I turned to the judge. I didn't leave because I stopped caring. I left because I realized I was being erased. Slowly, quietly, and I couldn't let my son grow up thinking that was normal. The judge's reaction. The judge didn't say much, but her eyes hardened the moment the recording played. "Let me be clear," she said, addressing the room. "Custody disputes are not games. Emotional manipulation, especially involving a child, is serious. This case is not just about infidelity. It's about intention. And I've seen enough." She turned to Rachel. "You invited 2 ex-partners, one a former spouse, to a family vacation without your husband's knowledge and allowed them to assume quasi-parental roles. That's not confusion. That's calculated." Rachel didn't speak. Her eyes filled with tears, but this time there was no applause. No sympathy. Just consequences. Custody decision. The court awarded temporary primary custody to me, pending a longer evaluation. Rachel would have visitation rights, monitored initially. There would be counseling sessions for Mason. And for me, I was given the choice: stay in Colorado or relocate temporarily for Mason's well-being. I chose to stay, to give him stability. Rachel's lawyer tried to argue, but the judge silenced him. "We're done here." After court, I walked out of the courtroom, lightheaded. Brian approached me outside, hands in his pockets. "Wasn't expecting it to go that way," he said. I replied. He nodded. "You're a better man than me, Eric." "No, just tired of pretending." He reached into his coat and handed me something. A worn photo of Mason from when he was a toddler. "Rachel kept this on the fridge when we were married. She used to say he'd never love anyone the way he loved you." I looked at the photo, then at him. "Take care of yourself, Brian." He nodded once and walked away. Rachel's final words. She caught me in the parking lot. Her voice was different this time. "Hello. You really walked away from everything." "No, Rachel. I walked away from what you turned it into. You know I loved you once." "I know," I said quietly. "But love without respect is just control." She wiped a tear and turned back toward the courthouse. For the first time, I didn't feel angry. I just felt done, rebuilding with Mason. That night, Mason and I ate burgers on the living room floor of my sister's guest house. He wore one of my old sweatshirts and laughed at a cartoon on the TV. "Are we going to stay here now?" he asked. "For a little while." He looked around. "I like it better." "No yelling." "I like it better too." He leaned against me, sleepy. "I'm glad you came back for me." "I never left you," I said. "Not for 1 second." Cliffhanger ending to part 5. A letter arrives. The next day, a letter arrived at my sister's house. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Typed. "He may have won this round. But this isn't over. You don't deserve him, Eric. You never did." No name. But I didn't need one. I knew it was from Kyle. And I knew he wasn't done. 3 weeks had passed since the court hearing. Mason and I were settling into a rhythm. School drop-offs, quiet dinners, bedtime stories. He laughed more now, slept through the night. He didn't mention Rachel much, and when he did, it was careful, like he was testing the waters. I never spoke badly of her. Not once. Because Mason didn't need to carry my anger. He just needed to know he was safe. Still, the letter from Kyle haunted me. His words weren't a threat. They were a promise. The backlash begins. It started with a phone call to my employer. Anonymous complaints about my mental instability. Allegations of misconduct. HR flagged me. Scheduled an internal review. Then the social media posts surfaced, photos taken out of context. Old texts manipulated to look cruel. comments implying I was emotionally dangerous, unstable, even abusive. Rachel didn't post them, but I could tell they came from someone with access to our history. Kyle. I didn't respond publicly. I didn't fight fire with fire. Instead, I handed everything over to Denise. She moved swiftly. Within 48 hours, a cease and desist was sent. 3 more clients came forward, people Kyle had harassed in the past. One of them had a restraining order. It wasn't just me. Kyle had a history, and now it was all coming out. Rachel's collapse. I received a call from Denise the following week. She's panicking, she said. Her lawyer reached out. Rachel wants to avoid further public hearings. Why? Because she knows her side can't hold up. She's offering to settle. What kind of settlement? She'll relinquish full custody on the condition that supervised visitation remains. She's willing to sign a parenting agreement and waive future property disputes. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired. She's not doing this for Mason, I said. She's doing it for herself. Probably, Denise replied. But in the end, the outcome's the same. The final visit. Rachel showed up to our supervised visit like a shadow of herself. No muck-up. No confidentes, mate. Just a woman who finally saw her house of cards collapse. Mason hugged her hesitantly. They sat on a park bench while I watched from a distance. She gave him a toy car, one he already had. He said thank you, but he looked over at me every few minutes, as if making sure I was still there. When their hour was up, she hugged him too long. Then she walked over to me.